You can spend hours online checking out where you want to stay when you go on vacation. You can check the hotel amenities, the restaurants, where it's located based on what you want to do at the destination, and even what type of rooms they have. And when you go on a cruise, you're going to pick out the type of stateroom you want, interior, balcony. But there is something that is even more important, or could be more important than these things, and that is where your room is located. Location of your room can be a huge make or break deal when you travel. So, this episode, we are going to talk all about room location. As this podcast goes live, we will be getting ready to board the MSC World America, their brand new ship, which is doing its naming ceremony and its inaugural this week. And we are so excited to be on the ship, both for the naming ceremony and that inaugural sailing. So we have so much we are looking forward to on this ship. Really excited about seeing the kid-friendly amenities. There's this partnership with Lego. Super excited about that. And I'm also excited about the first Italy at sea because I love Italian food. Anna, what are you looking forward to?
I think I'm really excited about the restaurants. I think MSC does a great job with their specialty dining, but I'm also curious just to see how things are different from some of the other MSC ships, like the main dining rooms and the pool areas. And this just seems to have so many more amenities and is such an upgrade from the more recent ships. I'm excited for all of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, we will have lots of video, photos, and just content from the ship that we will share in an upcoming episode.
That's good.
Now we are going to talk about our main topic, which is room location. And we're going to start right out at the beginning. Why does room location matter?
There are so many factors why it matters, but you have to consider some of the big issues, like if you have mobility issues or you have a disability that requires you to be closer to some things. If you're traveling with small children and you go to and from your room often, are you a heavy sleeper or a light sleeper? There are some places in a hotel or on a cruise ship you don't want to be if you're a light sleeper. There are other things like if you're going to have to go more often to the coffee shop or the swimming pool or something like that, you don't want to be at the opposite end of the resort from where those things are. So you want to factor in everything from where the garage is to where the coffee makers are. All of that stuff matters when it comes to location.
So I'm going to ask you some specifics on these things. For disability issues, what should people look out for other than a room specific to those issues?
Well, the very first thing you want to make sure is there is an elevator at the property, because if there's not, you want to make sure that your room location is on the first floor. Otherwise, you may not have access to your room. There are other hotels that are just sprawling resorts. And if there's not some kind of an internal transportation system, it's going to be really hard for you to get from point A to point B. Like Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, the very first time we stayed there, we stayed with my mother-in-law who used a walker, and we literally almost had to go to the actual African safari to get to this room, because from the front desk of the hotel, it is literally 2/3 of a mile. It is almost a mile to get to the farthest room, and we must have had the farthest room. So it was virtually impossible for her to do anything. Like once she was in the room, she was done. That was it. So you definitely want to take that into consideration. Most guests will not hear an elevator binging when people get on or off, but if noise is a concern, don't put yourself near an elevator. Ask for something away from the elevator, because even if you're not going to hear the little ding of the doors opening and closing, if a family with 2 or 3 kids come running off the elevator or running down the hallway, you're definitely going to hear that. So maybe move yourself away. And just convenience. If you are going to go back and forth to the lobby a lot, you're going to hang out by the pool a lot, you're going to be going in and out of the resort often, and you're going to need access to the garage frequently, you want to try and request rooms that are in areas that make it convenient for you.
And just to elaborate on noise, so I generally sleep pretty well and don't hear noise, but I had a room outside the elevator at an airport hotel, like a hotel that was actually like in the airport. And that alarm, I mean, that elevator ding happened like literally all night because people were getting up super early for their flights. People were coming in late. So the type of hotel matters too. And that ding I heard over and over and over and over again. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter, but in some cases. And some resorts now they have like a corridor with the elevator, so it's a little quieter. But yeah, definitely a big
Yeah. I'm a
factor.
light sleeper. That would have driven me crazy all night long.
So to get to your point about requesting a room, do hotels allow you to just pick your room? Is that something that is normal, that it's expected that you can do?
A lot of hotels do not, but you can make a request. So it's sort of a yes and no answer. Most hotels will allow you to request, I want to be closer to the pool, closer to an elevator. I want to be on the first floor, but they can't guarantee that you're going to get the space that you want. You are more likely to get it if you make those requests in advance instead of when you show up. Because while some places don't assign your rooms until you get there are still a lot of hotels that will pre-assign rooms based on the guests that are coming in. So they will always take into account this guest requested extra pillows or a high floor or whatever. So if your request is not in early when you make the reservation, you may not get what you need anyway.
And just to kind of elaborate on that, you also need to know where you're staying. So some resorts will have different room classes, right? So I've stayed at places where a higher floor is a different room class. Beaches, which we talked about in the episode last time, has like dozens of room categories, and things like the first floor are considered walkouts. And so those tend to be a little bit more money. And so when you're booking your room too, you want to make sure that you're booking the right category for the request you will make, because you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah, for sure.
So when do you make the request? You mentioned in advance, but do you do it when you book or do you call ahead?
Some hotels, when you do an online booking or when you book through a travel agent, there will be some place where you can make those requests. Sometimes they're very generic. It may just be higher floor, lower floor, extra pillow close to the elevator. So you don't get to do really specific things. Other hotels, when you do your online check-in, you can be a little more specific. There might be a little message box and you can type in, I have a mobility issue. I need to be close to, whatever. If there isn't in those cases, I always recommend that you call the hotel directly, because it's good to talk to somebody that's there, know that your accommodation has been made by someone, they know that you're coming in. And if you have a travel agent, they can do that for you too.
Yeah. And like there's some hotels, like I know I've stayed at a Hilton Garden Inn where upon check-in you can actually choose your room. So
Yeah,
that's also an option.
that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends on the hotel. So is this something you can do online, or you mentioned you recommend talking to a person?
I think when you do it online, it's more of a generic request. And even if it has the little box, you're not going to put your whole life story. You're not going to say, oh, my husband broke his ankle and he's going to be coming in with a boot on and crutches. And you don't have space for that. You're usually limited to the number of characters. So it's always better to talk to somebody who has boots on the ground at the resort. You may have little kids and you think, I really want to be located by the swimming pool because my kids are going to have me down at the pool 5 and 6 times a day. But if you have mobility issues, you might find out being at the swimming pool means that you're far away from all of the things that you need to access. So it's better to have somebody on the phone and you can say, here are the things that I'm concerned about. What area do you recommend? What type of room do you recommend? So if you can call, it's better to call.
Now, we had kind of in the beginning mentioned about cruise ships. Can you choose your stateroom on a cruise ship?
So this is the beauty of booking a cruise vacation, because you can actually choose the exact stateroom that you want to be in almost across the board. The only cruise line off the top of my head I know that doesn't do that is Virgin Voyages. But if you get assigned a room that you're not happy with, and they assign it to you as soon as you book it. So you can always call them back and say, this is going to be too far from the elevator for me, or I'd really like to be closer to the galley or something like that. But cruise ships are absolutely awesome in that you can choose the exact room that you want.
And with the cruise too, there is like that guaranteed category where you don't get to choose your room, right? Like sometimes, and if you like with Royal Caribbean, they have the Royal Up where you can bid. In those cases, you kind of get what you get.
Yeah. And that's something, if you definitely have an issue that requires you to be in a certain part of the ship, whether you're a light sleeper and don't want to be there where there's noise, or you want to be close to an elevator or close to the kids area or far away from the kids area, never book a guarantee room, because you don't get to pick your location. And if location is going to make or break your vacation, Don't leave it up to someone else to assign that stateroom to you. Take what you want right at the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say too, like with a cruise ship, especially, I think the first time I booked one, I was really worried about being, below the pool or below the buffet. Those ships are pretty quiet, I would say, in general. You're not going to hear the pool from your room, even if you're below it. You're not going to hear, you know, feet running or anything like that in general. I mean, you might hear people in the hallway, but above and below you, it's generally pretty quiet.
Yeah, it's usually pretty good, but like there are things on a cruise ship, and you and I had this experience when we were traveling with our friends. We just booked concierge rooms that were next to each
Right,
other.
right.
I did not do a lot of research. It was like, oh, they're two next to each other and we're just going to take them. And our balcony ended up being like a triangular postage stamp kind of thing where only one of us could be out there at a time. So, if part of your vacation is, oh, I'm going to sit out on the balcony, I'm going to read my book and I'm going to have a great time, you want to make sure your location is not in some weird corner of the ship where it might impact your ability to enjoy your balcony.
And the great thing about cruise ship rooms in general is that there's so much available online. And so many people will write in and say, I was in this room, it had an obstructed view. So take advantage of that. Search the specific room numbers and look at the maps and just see, does this have the weird, like, cut off balcony that we had? Luckily, that was a short sailing. And we weren't on the balcony very much, but it's true. It can be a big thing, especially if that's something you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I look for the room numbers, and it's usually after I book when it's too late, but I go on YouTube and I start looking up room numbers and see if anybody's done a tour of the room or
Mhm.
Cruise Critic. I like to see what my room is going to look like. I'm learning now. I have to do that beforehand, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely something you want to do.
Yeah. Um, and then what else do we need to consider when we're choosing a cruise ship stateroom?
I'm so glad you asked. We should do a whole episode on this because I spent hours poring over different websites, including Family Travel Magazine, because you really did an awesome article about choosing the best stateroom. And location on a cruise ship is super important if you have any kind of motion sickness, mobility issues, little children, if you're a light sleeper. So the very first thing is you consider the budget. There's an old adage that says the more you pay, the more you sway. And the more expensive cruise ship staterooms generally are on higher decks. But if the ship is rocking, I know there's some like science behind it. I went to law school, so I didn't have to do science. You do, if you're at the top of the ship, you sway a little bit more. So if you get motion sick, that's not a location that you want to be in. On some of these large ships, Icon of the Seas, Wonder of the Seas, if you have a mobility issue or if you're going to be carrying small children back and forth with you, you need to get something by an elevator or by a stairway or something that you can easily get to because you may end up walking. Get your 10,000 steps in on your first 10 minutes on the cruise because you've gone all the way from guest services to the back end of the ship or something like that. So you definitely want to find out, where your room location is when it comes to elevators. And we talked about how noise is not usually a huge thing on a cruise ship, but we just did a Royal Caribbean cruise with my grandchildren. And when Jim and I cruised by ourselves, we loved the boardwalk balcony. We absolutely loved the whole experience. But when I was there with my grandkids on Utopia of the Seas, our balcony overlooked the theater where the aqua show is.
Mhm.
And they did the aqua show 4 times while we were on the ship. Well, I have grandkids that usually go to bed at 8 o'clock. And there they were at 10 o'clock at night with their little faces pressed up against the balcony because it was so noisy from the show. And not just the music, but the people cheering and
Right,
gasping
right.
and everything. So definitely look at what shows are nearby, what theaters are nearby. Again, maybe the pool deck you won't hear too much, but if you're super sensitive to sounds, don't be under the pool deck, don't be above the casino. You want to find a location that definitely minimizes the sounds that you're going to experience.
That reminds me of we had gone to Aruba, and this was probably 20, 24 years ago, but we had this room that overlooked an atrium, an indoor atrium, and there was a fountain. And every 15 minutes, that fountain went off with this very loud song, and it was the same song. We were there for a week. It did not stop overnight. It performed the song. It was, and so, that's something you may not know like when you book, but it's something that you would probably see if you went on like TripAdvisor and looked at reviews. So that's always a good idea too. Cruise, you have these sites like Cruise Critic where you can see the staterooms and the reviews. But if you're looking at a traditional hotel, you're not going to have that. And that's where you want to go on and look at the hotel reviews online just to see if people do mention room location.
Yeah, I wish more people did room location videos or room tour videos for like the generic Marriott property off of Ive, because
Yeah.
you don't know what you're getting when you get there. And, if you are somebody who is going to be bringing in a ton of luggage, or we've stopped when our kids were little and I've got like a stroller or a pack and play, or I've got all of my baby stuff. So even if it's only an overnight, I want to make sure that I'm close to the elevator. I definitely want to make sure there is an elevator. So I wish more people would do room tour videos of just your regular roadside hotels.
Yeah, yeah. So, what we would like to ask guests is, have you ever requested a room location? And then what were the results? Did you get the room that you wanted? Did you get there and realize you didn't? Have you ever not requested a room location, got to your room and realized, no, this isn't going to work because, I mean, I've had outside the ice machine, which can be
No.
noisy. I had one where I was upgraded to a pool view, but I didn't realize the pool was open till like 11:30 at night. And it was
Gosh.
on the West Coast and I was coming from the East Coast. I just want to go to bed at like 8:30. So yeah, we want to hear all about these stories. You can leave us a comment wherever you are watching or listening. Or I just want to put in a plug for our Wander and Chat Facebook group. You can find us on Facebook, just search for it, and we have all sorts of discussions there. Kind of let us know what your experience has been.
When you book a hotel room, you definitely want to find out where the location of your room is going to be. Don't have your heart set on the pineapple room, like in the first season of The White Lotus, and then it ruins your entire vacation if you don't get it. Definitely look into room locations, whether it be you have noise issues, mobility issues, you're carrying small children. Know where your room will be and do your research before you get to the hotel. We had a question from our money saving Disney tips. Jody, does Disney have payment plans so that you can make payments over time instead of just giving them all your money up front?
So there isn't a like Disney sanctioned payment plan for your vacation, but you can make your payments over time. So if you have a travel agent, you can give them your information and they can bill monthly. Or if you're booking it yourself, you can log in and make payments. Depending on how you book it, that third party may have some payment options, but Disney themselves does not have like a specific payment plan.
I think it's nice that Disney has that flexibility that you make your deposit, and then if your vacation is in 6 months or 8 months or whatever, you just make payments when your paycheck comes in, or if you're waiting for whatever tax returns or something, because there are, especially cruise lines are notorious. If you don't do their whole flex pay thing, you have to make your deposit and then your full payment. So
Right,
I
right.
love that they do that. In news today, a recent BBC article caught my attention because I love The White Lotus. I watch every episode. I had never heard of this effect before, but it is basically the White Lotus effect on travel. Have you heard about this, Jody?
Yeah, I had heard about it specifically related to last season, but I know it's also happening this season and with the first season where travel and interest in travel to the destinations showcased. So Maui, Sicily, really like a huge uptick. The hotel, they've done all of them at Four Seasons. And these resorts have been selling out. The one specifically for Sicily, which was season two, was reported to be booked out for like 6 months after filming. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to see kind of the uptick related to people watching a show. And I think the way these episodes are filmed really does showcase the resort and the destination in a way that makes it appealing for travel.
It does. It makes it very appealing. And we were in New Zealand last year. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan. I had no idea that it was a huge thing. Like, I knew that a lot of the filming was done there, but they had easily 6 or 8 excursions that took you to various Lord of the Rings filming locations, or there was a Hobbit house built into this hill somewhere. So it was very interesting to me to read the huge impact that the White Lotus has had on the destinations, including things like you may not be able to get a room at the Four Seasons there for months out, or you may not be able to access the beach because the beach is closed because there are so many people on the beach. But even to a smaller extent, I did not know that Yellowstone, the television show, had a huge impact on Yellowstone, the Yellowstone National Park. I just assumed that was a big tourist destination. I didn't know it could be a bigger tourist destination.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And things like Paris, for Emily in Paris, there was travel to the fjords in Norway related to Frozen, which is interesting because that was like a fictional place, but people still
Yeah.
wanted to go there. So yeah, it's interesting to see kind of how the travel peaks to these destinations after something. And something like the White Lotus, which has been kind of a huge cultural, must-see show in a time when we don't have a whole lot of those, they do have an impact on travel.
Yeah, it's super interesting to me, but also something, when you talk about how to travel, which is one of the things that we do here on our podcast, definitely know that if you're trying to book any of these places that have some kind of huge following in the real world, it may impact the way you travel these destinations.
Right, right, right. And so yeah, I mean, we would love to hear from listeners again in the Facebook group or in a comment wherever you've listened or watched to the podcast. Would you travel to a destination just based on what you're seeing on TV or in the movies? And I think, Anna, I think this would be a great topic for us to talk about because I think there's a whole lot of these types of destinations that we can cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that we taught you how to book your hotel room at a location that you want to be in. Join us for our next episode where we will be talking about not only the tragedy that befell us with the Norwegian Aqua, but what to do if something happens with your vacation plans and they take a nosedive, whether you miss your travel arrangements or you have to cancel for some reason or totally out of your control, your vacation gets canceled. So join us next time where we talk about how you can deal with that disappointment.